So the antenna was wide enough that if you have it positioned just right, the top
It
of the
wasn't the antenna, it was the vertical. The antenna was the vertical on the thing. I am sure there's no such thing anymore. But the pictures, you could do horizontal or vertical. And you had to get it right. You had to get the picture in the middle. And if it didn't, it would go. This is why all the people who grew up then at that time are such interesting people, because of all the amazing experiences
they used to mess with magnets
in the basement of their houses. Okay. So yesterday the Rebbe took out our kishkas, and now he's going to put them back a little bit. He'll make us feel a little better. Val Pizeh Yesh Lahisif 333. Bir b'mashenemar es mispa yemechal malei. Okay, now another explanation. Add to our explanation. Amalei daika, I will fill. Shezeu inyan shaba milamayla dafka. This is something that comes from above specifically. Meaning, I'll fill up your days. Neisef al hizbeinenus, in addition to the hizbeinenus, the contemplation, the meditation that the Rebbe told us about in the previous page. The Adam, the mispar yomim sheniksev, that he has to think about the limited time that he has in Elam Haza and use that time well. Ubezeh gufa b'lashon neichach. Only the person over 25 went, Ubezeh gufa b'lashon neichach. They all think it's endless. Ubezeh gufa b'lashon neichach, and this specifically is in first person. Ayudei shlishim adaber, by virtue of the narrator. Who's that? Bechinas atzmas umas ein sof baruch hu. The essence of the Eibishter, shalamayla mishtalshalus. It's beyond ishtalshalus. It's I will fill. Okay, so what's this? Va'inyin bezeh. What is this all about? The Rebbe says, Shegam im yesh eze pegam v'chisaron b'mispar yomim d'avedus adam. Even if there is a certain blemish and a certain lacking in the number of days of the aved of a person, meaning for whatever reason a person who's trying his best to do what it is that he's supposed to do, but there were times when, for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and in the vernacular, he couldn't quite get it together to accomplish what it is that he was set out to accomplish, and he didn't use his time wisely, and he wasted some time, and he got distracted, etc. Shahayu etzla yomim. There might be days by him shaloi miles shlichusay, that he didn't fulfill his shlichus. Or yafilu yomim shebem asa gam inyanim bilti ritzuyim. Or it might even be there's days that he did things that are undesirable. Not only did he not do positive things, he might have even done some things that are the opposite of positive. Relative to etzim, relative to the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And what do we know about that level of reality? And this is brought up more completely in Sichos and Maimarim relative to Yom Kippur and how Yom Kippur works and how Yom Kippur brings about tshuva and kapara by revealing a level of our connection to the Eibishter where the wrongdoing doesn't affect, right, in our essential connection to the Eibishter. So anything that someone does down here sort of affects their neshama to a certain degree. But it does not affect the essence of the soul. The essence of the soul is not affected in any way, shape, or form by anything that's done down here because it's beyond the ability to be blemished. It is what it is. The mashal that's often brought is DNA, right? If you have DNA that says your hair is black, you can dye it blonde all you like. Revealed reality is you'll have blonde hair, but essential reality, it'll be as black as it ever was. It didn't affect that. It didn't affect your DNA. It affected all of revealed reality, but nothing essential. So too, in terms of our relationship with the Eibishter, if Chas v'Shalom a Yid does an Aveira, so that Aveira affects all sorts of aspects of his soul. It's talked about in Basi Lagani at length. In the fourth parak in the Friedrich Rebbe's Basi Lagani from Tafshin Yud. But it doesn't affect the essential, the essence of the soul. The essence of the soul remains completely pure. And that's why we achieve a state of kapara on Yom Kippur. Even we have to do tshuva. There's a machlekes Rebbe and the Chachamim whether or not Yom Kippur is mechaper for people who do tshuva or even for people who don't do tshuva. So we paskin that you have to do tshuva. But the tshuva that we do is not commensurate to the kapara that we get, obviously. Because if that were the case, you don't need Yom Kippur. Just do tshuva. Right? If you can do tshuva on any Tuesday. So do tshuva on Tuesday, and whatever level of tshuva you've reached, so that will be the level of kapara that you're granted. No. Yom Kippur is a greater level of kapara beyond the tshuva. So how does that work? There's a revelation of etzem and neshama. There's a revelation of that level where there was no pagam, there's no blemish. The soul is completely healthy. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here. On the level of Shlishi and Medaber, Shesham Loi Shayach Inyan Shel Pagam. On that level, there's no blemish. It's a level of our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that cannot be strengthened by virtue of mitzvahs or weakened by virtue of the opposite of mitzvahs. It is what it is. It's an essential state of connection. So the Eibishter also, so in other words, our wrongdoing or our wasted time or our unsuccessful day or whatever it happens to be doesn't reach that level. So from there, what happens, the Rebbe says? Mismale mispar yomim akotzuvle. The Eibishter fills them up. You're doing your best to do what it is that the Eibishter wants from you, but every now and then you blow it. You don't do it. It's okay. So if you're honest about it and you're sincere about it and you really are doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, or not just what you think, meaning obviously what you think what you're supposed to be doing within the context of learning from people who know better what we're supposed to do, learning Chassidus, learning Halacha, learning Nigla, learning Gemara, learning all those things from those people who know these things that we want to know. So when we do that and we're sincere in our effort to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the best way we know. So it might be that there'll be times when we're not exactly doing that which we're supposed to do and we're not living up to the previous page. So the Rebbe says that the Eibishter will fill in those missing blanks. He fills in those spaces for us. Right. After tearing out our kishkas, he gave them back a little bit. Even more. Now, obviously, the person has to, a person can't just sit on a couch and eat potatoes and burp and say, okay, we should fill up my days. He's got to do what he has to do, and he has to do it sincerely, and he has to do it with a lot of work and with a lot of effort. But the Eibishter is on our side. Shekola yomim nasim maleim, that all of his days will become full. V'loirak yomim maleim, and not only full days. Elagam yomim mi'irim, there'll be days that illuminate. Shezeu adiuk, the mispar yamecha. This is the number of your days. The word mispar. So the Rebbe says, mispar miloshin ha-shemayim misaprim, that the shemayim is sparkling. Perish the menarim menatzitzim. Right? The heavens sparkle with the stars. The word sapir, Evan sapir is sapphire. Sphere sa'imer, what's sphere sa'imer all about? So it's counting the Immer, but it's also illuminating the Immer. Illuminating each day with the evade of fixing that particular midah. So that's the idea here of mispar yamecha, to illuminate your days. Right? They should all sparkle. Umiloshin Evan sapir, like the language of Evan sapir, a sapphire stone. Shuloshin sapirus ubihirus, which is a language of brilliance, and two different languages that can often be translated as brilliance. Right? Bahirus, clarity, brilliance and clarity. So the Eibishter will fill up our days. Well, obviously we have to do what we have to do, and we have to be sincere about it, and we have to be real about it, and you can't fake out the Eibishter. You want to fake someone out, the only person you're faking out is yourself. Eibishter is real. He knows when people are trying to do something real, and he knows when people are not real. It's the way it is with the Eibishter. He's very real. Okay, so I remember once sitting in. Some of you might have heard of Rabbi Kaplan. He used to be much more involved with the students here. When he was younger, he used to have students over every week for a class in Chassidus, etc. So Uri, on one of his birthdays, I remember he said such a beautiful idea that Chazal say that a chassid does everything lifnim mishur sedin, beyond the letter of the law. That's Chazal's description of someone who's a chassid, someone who's pious. Right? Does something beyond the letter of the law. So the chassid goes beyond the letter of the law. So what's the letter of the law? The letter of the law is you're not allowed to fool people. It's called Einah. Einah's Devarim. What's Einah's Devarim? You walk into a store, you have no intention whatsoever to buy anything, and you start asking what the prices of things are. Right? So that's Einah, because you're fooling the salesman or the owner of the store. The owner of the store thinks he might make a sale. The salesman, who probably gets a commission, also thinks he might be making a sale. So you're not allowed to do that. You can walk in and say, I have no intention to buy, but I am looking at prices. Could you help me find out some prices? That's fine, you can do that. But to walk into the store and make it look as if you want to buy when you have no intention to buy, so that's awesome. It's called Eines Devarim. Ona is overcharging or underpaying, right? If you know what something's worth and the person selling it doesn't, and you underpay, so that's called ona'ah. Well, you're not allowed to do that, and if the person finds out, then if you underpaid him more than a sixth of the value, so then he's allowed to get his money back. Right? If it's just a sixth, so then you can get the extra money that he owes you. And if it's less than a sixth, so then that's it, you lose. Meaning, okay, that's considered. If it's less than 15%, so okay, so you were underpaid, but nothing. You should just be careful next time. Right? So to overcharging, same thing. Right? That if you overcharge more than 1/6 above the market values, then the person can return the object and get his money back. There's also what's called Eines Devarim. Eines Devarim is fooling people. Eines Devarim is telling a non-Jew that this food is kosher even though it isn't. Doesn't have to eat kosher. What difference does it make? Still, evidently wants to eat kosher. Who are you to decide whether he's eating kosher chicken or not kosher chicken? And if he asks if it's kosher and you lie to him, that's called Eines Devarim. Not allowed to do that. Not allowed to fool people. So what does it mean to go beyond the letter of the law? Don't fool yourself. That was always right. The chassid doesn't fool himself either. He knows what he's holding. He's always doing. Right, and also knows that he's not the Ravitcha Masmid, and he doesn't walk around with his air of self-importance and how holy he is, and how Chassidish he is, and how amazing he is, blah, 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 blah. Right, okay. There's a big Eibishter and there's little people, right? And what we get to do is quite astounding. And we try to do it to the best of our ability, and we try to do it in a sincere and real way, and then it all works out. There's times when we don't quite live up to what we understand is what should be done. So the Eibishter fills in those spaces if we're doing our best. If we're not doing our best, so then who knows what happens. V'zeu gam ma shenemar, and this is also what it says earlier, I'm saying. V'asiroisi machle mikerbecho. Now the Rebbe ends the Maimer with something very, very fascinating. The Indian of machla. There's two different lashonos for sickness, choili and machla. Chayli is an illness. Machla is something more general, right? And that's what the Rebbe is going to discuss. Hasiraisi machla mikerbecha b'loshen neichach. Again, I will remove. Now we talked about this a little before, right? That the Rebbe explained the difference between preventative medicine and curative medicine. It's going to take more involvement for curative medicine. Okay, so that's why it says in this context hasiraisi. There's already a machla, but the Eibishter takes a more powerful expression of the Eibishter to get rid of that machla, as opposed to the pasuk leisamti alecha. I'm not going to put upon you the sickness. So it's davka b'loshen neichach shlishi medaber. It's the narrator, the hine. Hamachla shaleh nemar b'asiresi. What's this machla? I'm going to remove machla mikirbecha. What's the machla? Machla kazu. This is some sort of illness. She'echayla liyos. That can be gam kasher v'avadatem esav elokechem. Well, that's interesting. It says v'avadatem esav elokechem. Serve God. Now we learned that service of God is pretty serious. This is someone who's reached a level of ava and yira. No joke. This person. Okay, fine. Ubeidech eslachma v'esmeimecho, and there's going to be a lot of bracha in. We'll see what that bracha is. That bracha is not only in Gashmi, it's also going to be in Ruchnias. Right? And yet still, there's a need for asiraisi machla mikerbecho. Well, why is that person sick? I don't know. He's saying it sounds like he's pretty healthy to me. So what's the sickness that has to be taken away by the Eibishter? That still could be there, even though he's holding by v'avadatem esav elokechem, and he gets the bracha of berech eslachma v'esmeimecho. But still, it says asiraisi machla mikerbecho. He still has to have some sort of divine intervention to help him with something. My, he's in good shape, isn't he? I'm going to say by the mimer. The mimer is The coffee is good. The mimer is better. But gam also, now the Rebbe is going to explain. In Ruchnias, so he even has a bracha in the avodah of lechem and mayim. So he's really at a serious level. And what's that? V'gam kasher berach es lachmecha u'meimecha. The lachmecha u'meimecha, what's that? Kayal Torah shebechsav v'Torah shebal peh. Torah shebechsav, lechem, basic sustenance. Torah shebal peh, mayim, that which causes things to grow, it expands things. Okay, that's Torah shebal peh. Mayim also takes the food to all the rest of the body, right? Mayim like helps distribute the food, right? So that you have to be hydrated in order to get all the minerals to get to all the different parts of your body in a successful way. Blood flows well, etc. Okay, so Mayim is Torah shebal peh, takes the Torah to all sorts of places that the Torah has to get to, meaning explains the Torah in a way that expands its expression. Oy, Torah mitzvahs, that lechem will be Torah and mayim will be mitzvahs, the expression of Torah. And in relative to this it says, and there's blessing in your lechem and your mayim. That what? She'avodah Torah and mitzvahs mitzada brocha d'shem havaya. That his avodah in Torah mitzvahs is a result of the brocha of Shem havaya. I mean, he has tremendous brocha in his avodah. So he's reached the state of Ava and Yira. He has tremendous brocha in his learning and in his mitzvahs. Very serious person. And yet still there has to be Vasirai Simach Lamikar. Still has to be the end of the pasuk. Why? This person's not sick. This person's unbelievably healthy. Why is he's doing just fine? The gamaz, even then, Adayin Yechayla Liyos Machla. There could still be a Machla. But Sarach Liyos Vasirosi Machla, and there has to be, I will remove the Machla, Al Yedei Shlishi Medaber Dafka. By Shlishi Medaber. By Inyan Bazeh. What's Pshat? Rabbi says. It's unbelievable. So there's a lot of footnotes, as you see in footnote 82. The Rebbe says you can find this in many, many different places. Shemachla shenemra kan. What's this machla? Machla stam. It's not a particular choli. It's not a particular disease. It's sickness. Right? He will remove sickness from the world. Okay, so what does that mean? Oh, you can also say it removes disease from the world, but that doesn't mean any specific disease. It means disease in a general sense. Okay. What's that? This is the source of all disease. It's one's sensitivity to self. That comes as a result of the Chet Eitzadas. What happened as a result of that Aveira? That humankind now experiences an existential reality called awareness of themselves. Hergish Atzmei. Now that can be overwhelming, and a person is just completely and totally wrapped up in themselves, and all they can talk about is themselves, and all they think about is themselves, and everything they bring back to it can be an incredibly all-encompassing state. Or it can just be an expression of an existential reality that the human consciousness is such that we have a powerful experience of self, but not that the person's completely wrapped up in themselves, etc., but it's still there, right? They're still powerfully aware of this person they refer to as I. Again, not in a negative way necessarily, but it's there. And that's just existential. Why? Well, because of Chet Eitzadas. Shabbat Misibas Chet Eitzadas. That's what happened. Now, obviously, that's what the Eibishter wanted to happen, because Chet Eitzadas happened on the sixth day of creation. I mean, it's not part of the history of the world, it's part of the creation of the world. Right? The Eibishter created a perfect world and then destroyed it, right? Which is an important thing to understand, meaning the world that the Eibishter wanted was the world after Chet Eitzadas. He wants you and I to make the world, to remake the world into a world like the world before Chet Eitzadas, but through our avodah. Right? So he didn't want, if he wanted Gan Eden, so make Gan Eden and keep Gan Eden. Right? The Eibishter can make Gan Eden. How do I know the Eibishter? He made Gan Eden. It's not a philosophical position. It's just he made Gan Eden. There was a place called Gan Eden where everything was perfect. Right? Okay. But within a few hours, I mean, obviously it was the sixth day of creation, so other things that happened within the context of all of creation, okay, but by the time the the main players showed up on stage, and the curtain, we see, it's interesting because the curtain wasn't even open on a certain level, meaning everybody was on stage and everything was there, but there was one thing that had to happen backstage before we could open the curtains and say, okay, we're ready for the play to start. And what was that? That was Ched Eitzadas. Okay, let's take the set and throw paint all over it. Okay, now we're going to start. Right? We made it all perfect, and now let's mess it all up. Oh, curtains are open. Let's go. History starts. Right? So that all happened on. It's so interesting. It happened on Yom Shishi. The Chazal tell exactly what happened when they were created, and when they did this, when they did that, and when was Chet Eitzadas? Like 2 PM or something. Friday afternoon. All we had to do was make it another 3 hours until Shabbos, and everything would have been perfect. But that isn't what the Eibishter wanted, obviously. Somebody doesn't want a perfect world. He wants you and I to make the world perfect by our Veda. So that demands Chet Eitzadas. What does Chet Eitzadas produce? The single greatest I'm looking for a word better than stumbling block. The single greatest obstacle. Thank you very much. That's what I was looking for. I kept saying opposition, but I don't want opposition. I want something else that begins with an O. The single greatest obstacle to Avodas Hashem, which is what? Hergish Atzma. Right? The source of it all, that I'm aware of myself, and I can even turn my Yiddishkeit into it's all about me and my spiritual Aveda and my spiritual elevation and my working on myself. And that's what this Mimer is all about, right? This Mimer told us that I'm not going to get anywhere if that's what it's about. I'll get places, I'll behave better, there's no doubt about it, but if it's all about me, then what? Well, so it's all about me, and I forgot the Iker. And what's the Iker? The Iker is called God. That's the Iker of this whole show. And I can make it all about me. God's very useful because God can give my life meaning, and He can give my life a certain transcendent quality. And to give the Baruch Hashem, there's God in the world. Makes life wonderful. Okay, but that's not exactly what it's about. It's about getting past this Hergish Atzmei. Now, I'm never going to get past it completely. Well, we'll see what the Rebbe is going to say about it. Right? I'm not going to get past it completely. Why? Because it's an existential reality that the Rebbe is to put in every single one of us. Right? So even very, very serious people are aware of the fact that they are doing these things that they're doing, and they're making the decisions, and they're aware of the fact that, I now want to go learn Torah for 42 hours straight. Okay, good. But it all comes from Eitzadas. There was no notion of self-awareness, self-consciousness. They weren't embarrassed. What's a synonym for embarrassment? Self-conscious. If I'm not aware of myself, I'm not going to be embarrassed. And what did the chet bring about? It brought about the notion of hergish atzmai, like it says. She saw that it was good to eat. In other words, she had her own opinion. She had her own opinion about what. Now that line is obviously there's a big problem in Chet Eitzadas, and everybody knows the problem. How could they I understand how they could do the Chet once they did the Chet, but how could they do the Chet before they did the Chet? Okay, say it. But that's not the issue that the Rebbe is interested in right now. Right? That is an issue, and it's discussed in many, many different ways. It's discussed in Pshat, it's discussed in Drush, it's discussed in Chassidus, it's discussed in many, many ways. Okay, say it. Right? But that's not the issue. The issue is what happened. So what happened as a result of that Aveira? All of a sudden, I'm very intensely aware of myself. Not necessarily in a negative way. Adam and Chava were big tzaddikim. But they now had an appreciation of the fact that they were something separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were a created being. They weren't one with Him in terms of their conscious experience. That doesn't mean they didn't want to serve Him. They continued to serve Him. They were very frum. Adam and Chava were very frum. Okay. But they now were aware of the fact that I'm Adam and you're Chava. And there's an Eibishter. And that's why, even after a person has fulfilled the beginning of the pasuk, and there's a broch in lechem and mayim, like the Rebbe explained at the beginning of the paragraph, and that can be the broch in Torah B'chsav, Torah B'alpeh, that can be the broch in Torah mitzvahs. Yochel liyos, there can still be v'yeshna. Not only could there be, there is inyan amachla. Shu inyan hergesh atzmai, which is hergesh atzmai. Kaven shechet eitzadas. Look at that, guys. End of the mimer. Chet eitzadas pa'al al kulam. Chet eitzadas affects every single human that has ever lived on the face of earth. Gamal tzadikim, even tzadikim. Gamal tzadikim gemurim, even complete tzaddikim. Wow. So it's one of the things that happens as a result of Chet Eitzadas. People don't live forever. That affects everyone. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. David HaMelech passed away. Yaakov Avinu lemes. Moshe Rabbeinu lemes. Because I'll say on a certain level. Right? Even though Moshe Rabbeinu, we talk about the burial, etc. Right? But Yaakov Avinu, we also talk about the burial, but Chazal go into great length in talking about how, even though there was a burial, it was only Ki'ilu, Yaakov Avinu lemes, whatever that means. Right? But everybody's affected. Gamal tzadikim gemurim. K'maimer Chazal, very, very amazing Chazal. Gemara in Shabbos. Now it's really interesting who these people are, and I've looked into it and never found it explained, in a complete way. Daled mesu be'etya shel nachash. 4 people died as a result of the eitzah, the advice of the nachash. What does that mean? That means they only died because of the advice of the nachash, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have been shaykh to the inyan of Misa. They'd really transcended that. But the only reason they died is because there's a gezerah that people have to die. Right? And this was said by, things with Moshe Kardover at the Levi of the Arizal. He said the Arizal was this also. The Arizal passed away first. One of them at the other, I think the Arizal passed away first. He was very young. He was always in his 30s. He did everything he did when he passed away in his mid-30s. Daled Mesa Be'ete Shel Nachash. We'll talk about who those 4 are. It's just so interesting. Shehem Tzadikim Ayesa Gedalim, that they're great Tzadikim. Shesibas Misosam Eina Ela Beglal Chet Eitzadas. The only reason they passed away is because there's a gezerah that you have to pass away. They themselves had brought themselves to the highest point imaginable. So really, they weren't shaykh to the inyan of Misa. Because what's Misa? Misa is a lack of kedusha. Misa is tuma. So they were just completely and totally transcendent of such a state. But there's a gezerah that there has to be such a state. So that's why they passed away. Who are those 4 people? So the Gemara says, so interesting. Binyamin ben Yaakov is one of them. Amram, Moshe's father. Yishai, David's father, and Kalev ben David. Not Kalev ben Yefuna, Kalev with an Aleph, ben David. Now these are really interesting people, all of them, right? I've been looking around for some sort of, why dafka these 4, but these 4 do share something very interesting in common. They are one step away from Mashiach, every one of them. Binyamin is a Mashiach. There's Mashiach ben Yosef. And there's Mashiach from Yehuda. But he's a step away from that. Amram, Moshe, Ger Rishon, Ger Achron. He's one step away from Moshe. Yishai, David HaMelech. He's one step away from David HaMelech. And Kalev ben David is also one step away from David HaMelech. I don't know what that means. It's just noticeable when you look at those 4 names. They're very interesting. They are not the one. They're a step away from that. And yet these were unbelievable tzaddikim. Tzaddikim Gemara.
also referenced at the end of the first paragraph of the Basra, right? I think it's like the last sugi before the end of the paragraph.
Yeah, it also talks about, we're getting there.
It gives like different lists of people. It shows lists of people that were shown a bit of Olam Haba in this world, a list of people who died only because of the
Oh yeah, it's also there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you're right. Look at that. Look at footnote 86. I just saw Shabbos Nuneh. It says Bab Basa Yud Zayin. Okay? We're getting there. We're gonna pull everybody through that Daf Yomi style. We're not gonna learn it in class. I'm gonna just teach a class and they'll prepare it. They'll review it. The last couple of blocks.
I think there's also a list of people who didn't decompose after they died. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. So this is all mitzad chetei tzadas. So then what's hasiroisi machla mikirbecho? So there can be a removal of this notion of hergish atzmai. But by whom? Atzmas. I mean, if there's a person walking around without this hergish, it's only because the Eibusher took it away. A person himself can't bring himself to that place. As great as a person is mitzad his own avodah, he's still going to be aware of himself. If the Eibusher takes it away, so then the person can transcend that also. But that's hasiroisi machla mikirbecho. That's the Eibusher taking it. Shesivus misasam eina ela beglal chetei tzadas v'lochen gam b'tzadikim gemurim. Third line, even with complete tzadikim, shayachini dehergish atzma. Still aware of self. Unless the Eibusher takes it away. The Eibusher can take it away. But mitzad themselves, they'll be aware of themselves. Uki yadua, shafilu tzadik gomer, oivid Hashem, b'yira v'ava, b'tanugim, even a tzadik gomer who serves the Eibusher with yira, and ava b'tanugim, an unbelievable pleasure in his relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, ain't a batal b'metzias lagamre. Not completely batal b'metzias, mitzad himself. I mean that there's a person doing this avodah. Elohu davar b'ifnei atzma. He's an independent being, Yira Hashem v'yavah, who's in awe of Hashem and loves him. And as we mentioned when we were learning about Ava, Yesh Misha Oyev. There is a reality of the one who loves. If I say someone loves the Eibusher, that means they must be in existence because they love the Eibusher. Okay, so there's this person who loves this being. So that person has a certain reality, a certain existence, separate from that being. Now, nothing compared to what you and I might experience, but still, they exist in some state of separateness. And this person doesn't come to a level of connection to the Eibusher, as was the case of his neshama before it descended down into a body. Right? Now, that doesn't mean that a person can't ultimately not experience, but bring about a greater closeness to a Kadosh Baruch Hu by virtue of mitzvahs than anything that can happen, even in Atzmos. Famous Maimar Rabim, right? The Maimar Rabim. So the Rabbi explains that our connection to the Eibusher down here in Olam Hazeh, doing mitzvahs, is more powerful than the connection of the essence of our soul and the essence of the Eibusher. Okay. That being said, in terms of mitzias, in terms of reality, the essence of our soul, as its mushrosh and atzmus, is indistinguishable from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ad Kedei Kach, what's that level called? The third level of Keser? Reish de lo yada v'lo yis yada, the head that doesn't know and isn't known. And what, so to speak, doesn't it know? Am I the Eibusher or am I me? So to speak. I mean, there's no me. There's just the Eibusher. And there's a neshama. What's the neshama? Chelek Elokami Ma'al Mamish, it's just a piece of the Eibusher, so to speak. That's the neshama there. Okay. And so it's true. Doing a mitzvah in this world connects us to the essence of the Eibusher even more powerfully than that aspect of our soul. Because the ultimate purpose of it all is you and me doing a mitzvah down here, not the very fact that there's a neshama up there. As amazing as it is that there's a neshama up there, this mushrosh and atzmus, that's source and atzmus. Okay, but that being said, a mitzvah down here is what the Eibusher really wants. What convinced the Eibusher to create the world? So to speak, the pleasure that he gets from you and I doing a mitzvah down here in Olam Hazeh. So before there was a world, before there was anything, before there was just the Eibusher all by himself, all of a sudden, what did he do? So to speak, Since he's beyond time, beyond space, he experienced the pleasure he gets from you and I sitting and learning a Immerse Chassidus at 8:15 in the morning. He said, I want that to happen in Gashmis. So he made a world. Right? Explosion of light. Simsim Rishon. Kav is Bekeya into the Rishima. And it all happens. And you end up with a place where there's people walking around with dirt in between their toes. And they're learning Torah. They're doing mitzvahs. They're giving tzedakah. And they're noticing when someone doesn't feel well and they ask them how they're doing. And they're doing what God wants. Yeah, okay. Fine. And that's what the Eibishter really wants. That's what the Eibishter, and the Eibishter, so to speak, experienced that before he created the world. And that's what caused him to create the world, so to speak. Right? And whom did he take counsel? The neshamas of tzaddikim. In other words, Yidden doing, so the Rebbe explained, Yidden doing mitzvahs down here, the Eibishter saw the movie already and went, wow, I want that to happen. Okay? And when it happens, that brings us closer to Etzem than anything else, even the neshama that's Mushosh and Atzmus. Okay, true. That being said, in terms of the neshama's experience, so the neshama obviously experiences a greater closeness to a Kadosh Baruch Hu when it's Mushosh and Atzmus than it does down here in Eilam Hazeh. Because down here in Eilam Hazeh, the neshama is clothed in a goof and an Nefesh Abamis and is aware of itself. It's aware of being a separate existence, walking around in Eilam Hazeh, whose feet might hurt. So obviously, before it came down into Eilam Hazeh, that's Tzaddik Gamur. V'alachas kama v'kama, all the more so. Certainly a Beinoni is obviously aware of himself. Ve'ela shelamat, and those people who aren't Beinonim yet, right? Maybe doesn't even want to talk about them. That's everybody we've ever met. She'etzlam bevadai, by those people bevadai yeshna inyan de'ergesh atzma. Obviously, they're aware of themselves. V'hasaras hamachla, what's the removal of this existential state? De'ergesh atzma. Eina yechal eliyas ayidei avedis adam b'keich atzma. A person himself cannot bring himself to a point where he's not margish as atzma. How can it happen? Through a tremendous level of drawing down godliness, I will move the Eibishter. It's another example of something that a person can't ultimately reach himself. The Eibishter has to do it. Very simple example. If you learn Basi Lagani, you saw it in the 5th parak. Nevuah. Right? The person can do everything. He can't make himself a Navi. Right? Who makes Nevi'im? The Eibishter makes Nevi'im. Right? A person can do all that's necessary to prepare himself to be a Navi. Right? But if the Eibishter doesn't decide that person's a Navi, then he's not a Navi. Right? And that's what the Rambam says, Shekadosh Baruch Hu minabe b'nei Adam. He gives Nevuah to people. Who? The Chacham, Gibor, Misgaber, Yitzhar, Yitzhar, Misgaber, B'shum, Davar, right? Okay, but say the Rambam describes who that person is. But that person does everything he can do to get to a place where he's fit for Nevuah, but ultimately it's not. If the Eibishter doesn't give him this thing called Nevuah, then it doesn't happen. Why? Because Nevuah is l'mayla mitam v'das completely. It's beyond. We can't become a Navi. The Eibishter gives Nevuah. Okay, so too this. This is even on a certain level, a higher level, right? This level of not any sense of self whatsoever, that's something only the Eibishter can give a person as a matana from above. The person works on themselves and gets themselves to whoever they get, but ultimately the Eibishter, the Eibishter can do that. It comes from Atzmus. And that's the Pshat in Vasiresi. Right? I will remove makla. I'll remove, right? And now when will the Eibishter remove that from all of us? Mashiach. Right? We will not experience ourselves the same way we do now. Are there tzaddikim walking around who the Eibishter is taking it away from? Yes. Otherwise, why is it a pasuk in Chumash? Right? Yes. But the tzaddik himself can't bring himself to that level. Only if the Eibishter takes it away. V'kol inyanim eila nimshachim gam b'gashmis. And this should all be drawn down b'gashmis. Now, everything we said in Ruchnius since the beginning of the Maimer, we started off this Maimer by bringing these psukim and explaining the psukim in Pshat, and then the Rebbe explained them all in Pnimius, in Aveda. Now the Rebbe is going back to the Pshat. Hein b'nagel l'mazayna revicho, both regarding an abundance in Parnasa, shal zeh nemar berach es lachma v'esmeimecho, right? That your bread and water should be blessed when you should have a lot of gashmis. Hein b'nagel l'chaya, also relative to health. Not only will I remove sickness from you, but you also live a very long time. Also relative to children. And that's all in Gashmi. So and all of this is a preparation for entering into Eretz Yisrael. After these psukim at the beginning of these psukim are the last pasuk in Shishi and the first pasuk in Shvi in Mishpatim, and afterwards was a talk about entering into Eretz Yisrael. So this is the preparation to enter into Eretz Yisrael. Okay, now I have a little bit of time. Look at the sicha that the Rebbe said right after this. This is unbelievable. All right. So you have a copy from this book. What's this book? This book is Taras Menachem, Tafshin Yud Beis, Chelik Rishon. Right. So this is the very end. Right. Parshas Mishpatim is the last parsha in Chelik Aleph. Right. Tafshin Yud Beis. And so not only does it have the Maimer, but of course it also has the Sichas that the Rebbe said. Not a lot, it's relatively short for bringing. But the Rebbe said a Sicha after this Maimer. So now we'll see what happened in the Farbrengen. Which is going to be the first page. It's absolutely astounding. You won't believe what you're about to see. The Rebbe sat down and said immediately, sing the Maimer Nigun, I'm going to say a Maimer. The first thing the Rebbe did in the Farbrengen was say a Maimer. This Maimer. So I guess I bet that there's going to be some Farbrengen after they heard this Maimer. Achrei a Maimer tziva kreish dab mashlit l'leim l'chaim. The Rebbe said people should say l'chaim. Then the Rebbe started talking. Nizbar barucha. It's explained at length by Maimer. In the Maimer we just learned. The Torah Chassidus demands that a person should make within himself a receptacle. That the content of that in Aveda hu inyan the ispilus sichlis, intellectual excitement. And afterwards, tia gam leidas havlad, there'll be the birth of children. Shezeu inyanam shocha mizgalus belev. And this is bringing this down into a revealed place in his heart. In other words, that a person will actually experience love and fear of the Eibishter the same way you've experienced love of a person that you're very fond of. And together with this, it demands from him, heder svias aratzon, a lack of satisfaction from his service, mitzad geudel tirdasei, because of his great expenditure of effort, the faryogkeit, b'milu shlichus, and fulfilling his shlichus. Yeah? Is that a reasonable synopsis of a lot of what we learned in the Maimer? Okay, good. Ulachor, the Rebbe says. Cave and shenid melanu, since it appears to us, v'chein hi emes, and this is the truth, shinyonim amurim nailim v'niflaim b'yezer, that these things are very lofty and wondrous, gewaldige inyanim, amazing ideas. Ketzad yitachen, how can it be, lidrosh lidvaya, to demand this as a davar mikol echad v'echad Yisrael? How can you possibly demand this from every Jew? Isn't that an interesting question to ask? Who just demanded this from every Jew?
He did.
He did. So what are you asking a question on yourself? What do you mean? The Rebbe says a Maimer. After the Maimer, people say L'chaim, sing the Gunim. And then the Rebbe says, whoa, how are we supposed to do that?
Oh my God.
What do you mean? You're the one who just said it.
He was somewhere else.
Oh, first of all, you see very clearly, wait until you see the answer. First of all, I mean, not so much the answer as the continuation of the question. You see very, very clearly here, more than, I don't know everything, so I can't say it more than anywhere else, right? I'm not going to pretend that I can say that. I can't say that because I haven't seen everything. But more than anywhere I've ever seen, you see very clearly there's a mimer and a sicha. In a sicha, the Rebbe is in Eilam Hazeh with his eyes open, looking at us, talking to us. Where is the Rebbe in a mimer? So we know the story of the Rebbe Shab, right? You've heard this story, and if you forgot it, so I'll tell it to you again. That's okay, right? That the Rebbe Shab once said a mimer, and he said a lot of mimer, right? He said a mimer, and the Chayzim came in with the mimer. They wrote it out, and they gave it to the Rebbe to look at. Say, this is the mimer that the Rebbe said, so he could publish it. And the Rebbe looked at it and said, I didn't say that, and I didn't say that. So what was that and that? Two psukim that the Rebbe sort of, paraphrased as opposed to actually quoted. And they quoted the psukim in the mimer. They knew that he was quoting a pasuk, so they just quoted the actual pasuk in the mimer, which made sense, right? As it says, and they quoted the actual pasuk. They looked it up in Tanakh, and they said, this is what the pasuk says. The Rebbe didn't say exactly those words. Right? So they just changed what the Rebbe said to the actual quote. The Rebbe said, I didn't say that. So they said, but we looked up the psukim, and those are the psukim. The Rebbe said, that's not what I heard in Gan Eden. Write what I said. That's what he said. That's not what I heard in Gan Eden. Write what I said. I mean, where's the Rebbe when he's saying a mimer? He's in Gan Eden, hearing this information, and his mouth is saying it to us. That's why the Rebbe's eyes were closed. The Rebbe used to wrap a handkerchief around his hand when he said a mimer. Why would he do that? So I don't know whether the Rebbe explained this or it was explained. I don't know, but the explanation always was that the Rebbe required a certain achiza in Eilam Hazeh. He had to be connected to Eilam Hazeh in a very powerful way, because he could theoretically float away. Whereas the Rebbe is, he's like grew up in Haight-Ashbury, and he's interested in being some high flying Californian. No, he's a very serious person, and yet the Rebbe said he needs to be connected to Eilam Hazeh. And you could see the Rebbe take the handkerchief off after. It always happened under the table. The Rebbe's hands were always under the table, and the Sikh, the Rebbe's hands were on top of the table, and in Mimer, the Rebbe's hands were always under the table. But you could see something happening under the table. And if you want to see it actually happen, so Erev Shavuos Tafshin Mem Tes, the Rebbe said a mimer standing up in the front of 770, just pitom, the Rebbe said a mimer. It turns into a sikha. So it starts off with the mimer niggin and then ends up with the sikha niggin. If you want to notice the different niggin that the Rebbe says a mimer with as opposed to a sikha, you notice it there because the Rebbe starts with the mimer niggin and ends up with the sikha niggin. But at the end, since the camera angle, it's the camera that's on the Amud in 770, is just taking a picture, just filming everything that's happening. So that's where we have that tape. So you can see very clearly because the Rebbe's standing at the Amud. So in the angle, you see very clearly the Rebbe take the handkerchief off after he finishes talking. That's the only time I ever saw that, right? Because when you were there, you couldn't see the Rebbe take it off. It was all happening under the, I guess the people behind could. Okay. So the Rebbe is in some place saying a mimer to us. He says the mimer. He's, so to speak, back in Eilam Hazeh. And he says, whoa, how are we supposed to do that? Wow. Now look what he says. Now I can't believe that when the Frierdiker Rebbe told this to the Rebbe, that he thought the Rebbe was going to tell this to all the Chassidim. But anyway, he did. Though the Rebbe the Rebbe often said that sometimes Frierdiker Rebbe would say things to him, and he must have known that I was going to make from it a shturim. The Frierdiker Rebbe once told me, look at what this is unbelievable. Sha'aviv HaRebbe Nishmas Eden, that his father, the Rebbe Shab, Amarlo, said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, said to his son, Shelifamim Sve, now this is a funny language based on our mimer, but obviously it's not the Lifamim Saveh Rotzen, this all was originally in Yiddish, right? Saveh Rotzen, that he was happy, Hu Mizeh, Shesovel Mikev Betan, that he had a stomach ache v'tzarech leilech lifnes, and he would have to go to the washroom. Why? Ki b'yesib b'makim shal pi din poter hu mikol inyan aveda. Because when he's in a place that al pi din, he's exempt from any inyan of aveda. This is the Rebbe Shab talking. B'yecholto az lafush l'rega, he can rest for a minute, with from his effort for tirdoso b'avedas Hashem. Abchapen den alten and kumen zu sich. The Rebbe Shab said that if he has a stomach ache, he can go into the washroom and he has a few minutes where he can just breathe. Wow. So what's he doing the rest of the time? Right? Now you think, oh, so this is also very important to understand. People think Rebbeim are robots. They're not robots. They're human beings who have brought themselves to this unbelievable level of holiness, obviously with the potential given to them by the Eibishter at the very beginning, right? Barasa tzaddikim, barasa rishonim, that we know. The Eibishter created people with the potential to become tzaddikim, okay? And they worked extremely hard to fulfill that potential. And then as they're doing whatever it is that they have to do in Olam Hazeh, they're working extremely hard to make that happen. And it's not that it's not without effort. They're not just like some sort of robot that you flick the switch and they're just this holy robot who's busy davening and learning and saying Maimarim, etc. No, it takes unbelievable effort and work to do what it is that they have to do in Olam Hazeh. And they work hard at it. And so the Rebbe Rashab actually said sometimes he's happy when he gets to go to the washroom and he can just sit and now, is that Hergish Atzmi? I don't know. But quite astounding. Rabbi Gruner told me that after dollars, they'd often have to put the Rebbe's wrists, right wrist, in ice to bring down the swelling. Because the Rebbe would be going like that for 5 hours. Now do that for 5 minutes and see what your arm feels like. And you're an elderly gentleman and you're doing that for 5 hours. So the Rebbe's wrists would swell up. And we know the Rebbe's feet hurt. We know that. The Rebbe had, the Rebbe was sovel from the Rebbe's feet. He used to hurt. The Rebbe didn't put his one of his feet, he didn't put it all the way in the shoe. He used to stand on the heel of the shoe. The heel was down. He would stand on the heel. And the Rebbe's foot was sore. Once Reuven Dunan was a chassid here in Eretz Yisrael, who was a character, and he learned, there was a time in his life when he was a bacher that he learned Tanya with the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, anytime you want, you can knock on the door, and if I have time, I'll talk to you. So he didn't take advantage of that very often, but I mean, he did do that. And he used to learn, he used to have a learning seder in Tanya for the Rebbe. Once he showed up for the learning seder, he was tired. So he didn't want to be tired learning the Rebbe, so he put his head down for 20 minutes. He woke up and he ran into the Rebbe's room and he was a minute late. And the Rebbe said, that's the end of our Charusa. They never learned again. Oh. Was it? Walked in a minute late and I was So Reuven once was standing watching the Rebbe go down the stairs to 770 and he noticed that the Rebbe's foot was out of his shoe. So only Reuven would do this. So the Rebbe, he ran down the stairs and with his finger quickly picked up like a shoehorn. He went like that and he got the Rebbe's foot into the shoe. So the Rebbe took another step and wiggled his foot out of the shoe and put it back the way it was and just kept walking. Didn't pay any attention to who was behind him, just kept walking. So Reuven was beside himself. What have I done? So when the Rebbe finished, whether it was davening for bringing, it was just davening, right? The Rebbe just went down to davening and came back up. So he was waiting at the top of the stairs and he apologized. The Rebbe said an amazing thing to him. The Rebbe said, when a person has good intentions to help another Jew, nothing terrible will ever happen as a result of it. Don't worry, it's okay. It's true. It's not what I wanted, and but nothing negative will ever happen if you have a proper intention to help another Jew. Moving or something else. So he was a tractor driver. He drove a tractor in Haifa with a big yellow hat, a Caterpillar tractor. That's what the Rebbe told him to do. The Rebbe told him he should be a tractor driver. So he was. So let's just see what the Rebbe says. We'll finish up. It's late. And if such things can be said even relative to tzaddikim and Nesiah, look what the Rebbe says. It's so funny what the Rebbe is about to say. And even if this is a story of the Rebbe Shab, right? La nashim kerekenus, the Rebbe says. So people like us, us, the Rebbe and us, like us. Bavade kasha b'yesir. So certainly this is difficult. A gavalta gezach, an amazing thing. Shetir yagir v'tir da baveda b'tminus, that our expenditure of effort and involvement in avodah should be constant. Ad g'dei kach, to such an extent, shelo makam l'sviyas ratzon, there won't be a place for satisfaction. V'nishel sefer shaila, therefore it can be asked, Kate said, yesh l'kol echad v'echad misra. How could it be that there is the ability in every single yid, a koyach, the potential, something so amazing as this mimer that we just heard, as if he didn't say it. The answer, one line answer. Even the loftiest things, shayachim l'kol echad v'echad Yisrael, are shayach to every single Jew, mitzad ha'keiches, shenesim lo milamaylim, based on the powers that are given to him from above. End of answer. Yes, you can. There you go. Amazing. Can you imagine? Maybe tells this story and it's just like unbelievable.
It's extremely relatable, though.
100%. It's like beyond belief.
Very human.
It's human on one level and completely superhuman on the other one.
Yeah.
Like he's just in both places at once. He knows exactly who we are, where we are, what we're dealing with. But he's not going to let us off the hook. Because just doesn't let us off the hook. Rabbi Kunin used to always tell the story that he opened the first Chabad house. In the Lametz, when the Rebbe started talking about a Chabad house, everybody thinks Chabad house like, Avram Avinu had a Chabad house. The Rebbe, the idea of a Chabad house was the idea of the Lubavitcher Rebbe in the Lametz. The early Lametz, the Rebbe said there should be a place where a Jew can go that's Jewish and makes the Jew feel at home even if they don't want to pray. Because what was there until a Chabad house? Synagogues. If you wanted to go into somewhere Jewish, where'd you go? A shul.
The Jewish community center.
Okay, but those weren't Jewish, right? I mean, that was the problem, right? I mean, what did they have? They had a gym and a pool.
Right, you're not going to have a faith-based experience.
Right, so if you want to, but you don't want to daven, you just want to go into somewhere Jewish. Okay, so the Rebbe said, so we should have a place called a Chabad house. We'll call it a Chabad house, the Rebbe said. Beis Chabad. So Rabbi Kunin opened the first Chabad house in Los Angeles on Gailey Avenue. 741 Gailey Avenue. He tried to get the Los Angeles city government to change the address to 770. He tried for years and they wouldn't do it because it was the wrong side of the street. Stupid. Dummies. It's so stupid. But anyway, so they wouldn't do it. They're very square. In all their hipness, they're very square. So he opened the first Chabad house. And that's not a small feat, right? He went to LA and he raised the money. Okay, bought the place. So he came to the Rebbe with the key. He went into Yeshiva, and he had the key to the Chabad house, right? Like you do, you give the key. So they said to the Rebbe, "That's a schlüssel from Chabad house. This is the key from the Chabad house." And the Rebbe said, "Which one?" Meaning there's one? What do you mean? It's the first Chabad house. It's the first guy who did it. No, shkeach, good job. Which one? Well, there's only one? He didn't say anything. He turned around. Yeah, he turned around. He walked backwards out of the room. Right? Got on a plane, went back to LA, started opening another one. Okay. You got the message. Rabbi Kaplan from Baltimore told a great story here in Farbrengen. He did his first Simchas Torah as a shaliach in Baltimore. So he did a big Simchas Torah outside. He got 3,000 people to come to Simchas Torah in Baltimore. He did a big, huge thing. So he was so excited, 3,000 people. So he Keishel Bracha, so Baltimore's 3.5 hour drive, 4 hour drive, but if you're a shaliach after Simchas Torah, you can probably do it in 2.5. So he drove as fast as he could up to New York to Keishel Bracha to go tell the Rebbe that there were 3,000 people. So he gets up to the Rebbe and he says, and he gets Keishel Bracha, and then he tells the Rebbe, 3,000 mentioned by Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe goes, 30,000 mentioned? 30,000 people? So he says, no, 3,000 mentioned. 30,000 mentioned? 30,000 people? So he hops. He goes, okay. And walks away. That was it. Right? How many Yidden are there in Baltimore? So 3,000 is amazing, right? I mean, it's amazing, unbelievable. There's more than 3,000 Jews there, Rabbi said. But then, it's interesting because the opposite of Rabbi Groner in Australia's first Pa'ula. One person showed up. And he was very upset. And the Rebbe said something about, I don't remember the exact lashon, it's famous. But the Rebbe said something about the fact that Avram Avinu had only one mother or something like that, like meaning one Jew is also a whole world. And that Jew ended up supporting a tremendous amount of what Rabbi Groner did at the beginning of his shlichus in Australia. Because he just did what he wanted to do. He thought there would be a couple hundred people. There was one person there who did whatever he was going to do, and the person was very impressed. And ended up supporting very seriously a lot of what Bob started. But there was one person. He didn't cancel the event. So, the 30,000? And there's a lot of noise, right? People are singing. And the first time he thought the Rebbe didn't hear him. And he realized, oh no, the Rebbe heard him just fine. Okay, we'll start a mimer called Balayla Hu. Purim, Tafshin Mem Dalet, beautiful mimer, tomorrow morning. Chazer, this mimer, don't let it go to sleep and not be part of your life. We had a student in Mayanot, we learned this mimer probably 20 years ago.